In celebration of Season 1 dropping next week, I thought it would be a good idea to reflect, to look back on the good times and bad times since March 2018. In anticipation of the update cycle changing, again, it'll be nice to gauge what we can expect from the new season system. And, of course, this is just my opinion, but absolutely put your rankings in the comments, it'll be interesting to see how they'll compare. Also, I won't be ranking the Build Rat adventures, maybe another time. Without further ado, let's rank the content updates for Sea of Thieves. We're going to kick off this list with Lost Treasures. Can we really call Lost Treasures an update? This small bug fix update was released in May 2020, with a handful of quality of life updates and some small bug fixes. At least some of the launch sets were completed here, so we got a good number of cannons, capstans, wheels and flags. This included the Ceremonial and Grand Admiral sets, the Ruffian and Rogue Sea Dog sets, the Build Rats, Castaway Build Rats and Scurvy Build Rat sets, and lastly the Royal and Imperial Sovereign sets. There was also a small Pirate Emporium update that added some Ruby Splashtail cosmetics. Honestly, this update was nothing to write home about, but this was soon after Red switched to working from home during the pandemic. I think the best changes were the rowboat changes so that you could access the chest without sitting down all the time, and the tall tale checkpoints. All in all, despite the reasons for the failing of this update, it's still the worst named update in my opinion. Up next is Black Powder Stashes. This update added a handful of mercenary voyages, getting you to dig up some black powder kegs. You would have to go to several forts, defeat some skellies, and dig up some gunpowder kegs. You could actually turn in the stronghold kegs to any trading company, which was really cool. Honestly though, this really was such an empty update. I actually had to take a break from Sea of Thieves after this because Anniversary was so good. This was such an underwhelming update. Oh well, on to better things. Where to start with Dark Relics? This update essentially added a voyage in which you had to battle a skeleton crew, then dig up one of these Dark Relics upon finding the location of it. It was essentially a Gold Hoarder voyage spliced with an Order of Souls bounty rolled into one. The reason why this wasn't at the bottom was because of the introduction of Reaper's chests, which you can find in the game today. I remember when these were added, they would often encourage PvP because you can see them on the map at all times. Oh, and rowboats also got harpoons, so that was pretty cool. Overall, this update could have been right at the bottom if it were not for the Reaper's chests. This update was really small, but had enough new features to save it from the bottom. Much like the last two updates on our list, Smuggler's Fortune was simply another fetch quest. This time you had to dig up rag and bone crates and deliver them to an NPC at a sea post. Again, I barely touched this update because it really didn't add much in terms of new activities. The meat and potatoes was the introduction of the Pirate Emporium, and this will be less important higher on the list. The new offering of pets was really cool, but wouldn't reflect the Pirate Emporium that we see today. And another really underappreciated tool was added, the storage crate. Honestly, this was such a great addition, and as a mainly solo player, it really is useful. So overall, not a bad update, just really quite small like the last two. Honestly though, these first 5 or so updates are interchangeable. I think they could easily be arranged in any order. Fate of the Damned was our third Halloween themed event for Sea of Thieves, and it really suffers from a boring main quest. You have to find a couple of Flames of Fate, go to an island, whip Greymarrow again, and all you get is a Ritual Skull. They also added their new event system, which I'm not really a fan of because it forces you to do a bunch of challenges that were recycled from old events. At least the earnable stuff was cool, but if you want the full Soul Flame set, you need to pay for the ship set. We did get the Ashen Vault voyage, which can be really lucrative, but that's pretty much it. I really didn't like this update and would only really rank it higher because it didn't stop me playing the game, like the last 3. But we're out of the worst ones now. Starting with the good, the challenges actually had really good rewards this time, with the Order of Souls, Gold Hoarders, and the Eastern Winds tools to earn. Cannon flares were added too, so that was also very cool. And we also got a Gilded Voyage. Rare doubled down on the events again, which I'm not too pleased about because they tend to be busy work. I also don't really understand the idea of a pirate game rewarding you for giving out loot, even though you get loads of gold for it. And I guess it's in the context of Christmas. It's just a strange concept to me. Overall, a decent update, but nothing to write home about. I think some people might disagree with this being placed over 2020's edition, however, I think my reasoning is pretty sound. We got the Maiden Voyage in this update, which, despite being a tutorial, is a beautifully crafted piece of the game. Old Sailor's Isle is the best island in the game, and is what every island should have been like. There's so much to discover and explore, so much lore to uncover, and we get help from the legend himself, the Pirate Lord. This should have been in the game at launch because it was a beautiful introduction to the game. We've got some new skeleton lords to fight in forts too. Despite them being reskinned of previous fights, it was cool nonetheless, and we were tasked with retrieving gifts and giving them to Wanda at the Reaper's hideout. Or we could give them to other crews, which doesn't interest me in the slightest, well, because I'm a horrible bastard. I rank this update quite high purely based on the Maiden Voyage, and would have been much higher on the list if it wasn't so focused on new players. Legends for the Sea added some commendations for finding certain Easter eggs on the map, which was a nice change from having no rewards at all. We also got loads of basic clothing options and was the last time the clothing stores actually got an update. This was January 2020 by the way. Oh, and we got a Gilded Voyage for our troubles too. I personally had a lot of fun ticking off the Easter eggs and learning about some legends in the Sea of Thieves community. It was almost inspiring, should I say. Take that how you will. Cruise of Rage added the Chest of Rage and Voyages to obtain it. We got some Pirate Legend cosmetics too. I think I really enjoyed this update because the Chest of Rage added a new tool and Cursed Chest at the same time, which I would love more of in the future. We finally got the chance to change our pirate's appearance too, for a small fee, however. So all the updates from now onwards represent the good updates. Again, they might not be your cup of tea, but they are definitely up there in my book. Vaults of the Ancients repurposes the vaults from the Tall Tales and stuffs them to the brim with golden goodies. We got dogs too, which is cool. The new Wayfinder voyages bring the quests in line with my expectations. Even though it was a simple fetch quest, it is really cool following a compass to get map fragments and then dig up a key, which in turn leads to loads of gold. The voyage plays on the risk versus reward, where we can sell the key and get a neat little profit, or we'll take the higher risk option. If you manage to open the vault, do you keep someone on the ship to watch out for other ships, or do you commit all your manpower to get as much gold as possible? You might not find enough medallions to get your chest of ancient tributes, so you might need to commit more crew members to do that also. This is what I really like about Sea of Thieves, and hope more of this philosophy is used in the future design process. Haunted Shores adds the new Ghost Fleets as a world event and Ghost Captain voyages for the Order of Souls. This new encounter is great for leveling up because it feeds you so much loot. It's much better than the skeleton alternative because it actually feeds you supplies also. Not to mention it introduced 3 new ammo types for your cannons. I remember finishing one of these solo only for a duo sloop to sneak up behind me and try to take the loot left floating in the water. I peeled off and waited for them to anchor, which allowed me to dumpster them with the Wraith Ball. Getting hit with one of those is absolutely devastating. Not to mention we got so many more shanties with this, which is always welcome in my book. I really like this update and wish we could get stuff on this level all the time. This is very similar to Haunted Shores, but with a land-based encounter instead. The Ashen Lords act like Skeleton Lords, but with so much more health and cooler attacks. I wouldn't say a whole lot was added in this update other than in the Emporium, but the Ashen Wind Skull acts as a flamethrower, which is pretty sweet. The thing about the Ashen Lords is, you can't pelt them with cannons, so all of you have to fight it, which again is opening up the potential for some spicy encounters with other players. I think the last 3 are all interchangeable because they are some really solid updates. Fort of the Damned, possibly the greatest PvP update in the game. This update has been the source of player encounters for the last 18 months and you can see why. Imagine a normal fort, only tougher, with shadow skeletons and a grey marrow with tons of health. Put it in a permanently dark area and it's a Tucker's paradise. Again, we're playing on the risk versus reward, but my lord, this is made for such entertaining plays and viewing since its inception. The Fort of the Damned was such a good addition, it really built on the original forts. Back when the game released, the Skull Forts were so lucrative at the time, there used to be incredible fights over them because gold was so hard to get, and Fort of the Damned just captured the spirit of that. Obviously the real reason why this is ranked so high is because we got our first instrument since Hungering Deep, the banjo, because who doesn't love the banjo? This one is really simple. I'm a sucker for Tall Tales, so obviously it was going to be ranked really high. The gauntlets that you had to run in the dungeon were so much more reasonable than the Shores of Gold, and having 3 paths made you want to replay it. We got the last piece of the Ashen Dragon set too, being the hull and a new curse too, the one I currently sport on my pirate. Yes, I know it isn't good for tucking, but look at the size of me. It really doesn't make much difference when you're shaped like a hippo with type 2 diabetes. We got the Blunderbomb and the Chain Shot, which expanded the sandbox too, with the former saving me as a solo slooper and the latter bumming me all the time. Oh, and enjoy that mental image. Pirate Legends got the Athena run too, which, like Fort of the Damned, made for some seriously epic plays and stream highlights. Again, say it with me, emergent encounters are the best part of this game. I both love this update and hate it at the same time. After reading so much about Flameheart in the Tales from the Sea of Thieves book, you can imagine I was elated to release this giant bobblehead onto the world. The Seabound Soul is doused in atmosphere and in my opinion is the best Tall Tale. It really felt like I was on some sort of crazy voyage back in time while doing it, and opening the sarcophagus in the end was bone chilling. Accompanying this with a hauntingly beautiful score composed by Robin Beanland, you have a storytelling masterpiece. As for why I hate this update, it introduced the f***ing Ashen Tomes, the most frustrating thing in this game behind hit reg, but slightly above a rowboat black screen. Making these RNG really made me want to rip my eyelashes out. I only got my last one in September. Seriously, I wasted so many doubloons trying to get them for that last bloody Ashen Dragon piece. Don't do this, ever again. Fire and firebombs were implemented too, which suited the theme really well, but it really makes me sad that we aren't getting a Tall Tale for a very long time. Ships of Fortune. Now, where to begin? This second anniversary update absolutely smashed it. The emissary system is definitely one of the best new mechanics added to the game. I also got to represent our Lord and Saviour Flameheart in the Reaper's Bones. Also, Arena 2.0 was the much needed overhaul to Arena, despite the fact it's so dead it's getting no more support. Besides, we got a bunch of new cosmetics to earn in the emissary system too. The emissary system raises the stakes for all companies and was so broken on launch. The rep and gold increase was absurd before they patched it. Like I've said before, the system encourages players to increase their own risk but are rewarded adequately for doing it. Couple that with the Reaper's Bones and we have a recipe for some chaos. I know some people hate PvP, but the stress of knowing someone might attack you for your flag is exhilarating. If every update was like Ships of Fortune last year, I would be a very happy captain. So I'm really biased about the next few updates. Reason being is that Sea of Thieves was incredibly empty at launch, so the next few updates really felt like it added to the game. Cursed Sails added the second AI threat of the updates, a new ship type, and a neat little campaign to boot. The skeleton fleets that you had to fight were so ridiculously hard because they had access to cursed cannibals, and we didn't. Some of them would just lock you into a sleep or dance animation for so much time. But this was really fun to tackle. It really felt like a good addition to an empty game, and keep in mind this was the only second major update to the game. You had to work together too, because that was the most efficient way to get it done, and there were no skeleton sloops either, it was just galleons. Rare deliberately balanced the encounters to force you to work together, and you'll see a similar theme in the future. The main criticism at launch was that Sea of Thieves was as wide as an ocean but as deep as a puddle. This addressed a lot of these issues. We got a new weather effect, emergent fog, which added so much to the atmosphere, making the world feel so much more realistic. The Kraken finally dropped loot when defeated, as did the Megalodons. Speaking of which, the Megalodon received 3 new variants, the Crested Queen, the Shadow Maw, and the Ancient Terror, all with varying rarities and behaviours. The Skeleton Sloop was also added and emergent skeleton ship encounters, so you could get jumped at any time. 6 more skeleton forts were activated too, bringing the total up to 11 possible forts. Lastly, Rare implemented deeper ship customization, which meant we could customize cannons, capstans, and wheels. Seriously, this feature wasn't in at launch. I loved this update so much, and I believe this was the start of the Sea of Thieves redemption arc. The first and only map expansion slides in at 3rd place. We got a whole new region, Ashen Loot, a short campaign, the rowboat, and new merchant cargo runs. Expanding the map with new environmental hazards was really interesting. It was extra hard mode because those volcanoes would absolutely slap you, they seriously would target you. The eruptions were so frequent and long too. There was something really special about heading into the Raw, where the land felt truly unforgiving and hostile. It is much more manageable now, but back then the extra gold was worth it. The Hungering Deep really didn't add a whole lot. You got a short campaign with a boss encounter at the end, a handful of cosmetics, and the speaking trumpet and drum were also added to the game. The best thing about Hungering Deep was the state of the community during this event. I think Sea of Thieves is much more popular now, and so many people probably don't know how you triggered the boss encounter. Merrick would teach you a special shanty after finding all of his journals. You then had to carry the song to south of Devil's Ridge all the way from Sharkbait Cove, and you couldn't stop playing it because the only way to play it was by standing next to Merrick. The real kicker is that you needed 5 people to start the summoning, so as you can imagine, you had to ally with another crew. The original Hungering one was tough. It had a ridiculous amount of health and did so much more damage than the one in the game today. I remember tackling it with 6 people and we barely won, with our 2 allies bailing and patching constantly. It was a genuinely good fight and really pulled people together. I think the nicest thing was that there was no incentive to betray one another. Everyone got the rewards and there was no loot to turn in after the fight. The sense of community has never been replicated in any subsequent updates. It truly wasn't about the gold, but the glory. I love the event so much, I still sport the scars and tattoo today on my pirate. Was there any doubt this would be number 1? Anniversary is what Sea of Thieves should have launched at. Adding a 9-chapter story campaign, arena, fishing, expanding the ship combat, and harpoons. This was the update that put the game back on the map and crushed the doubts from launch. If Sea of Thieves had launched like this, it would have easily been Game of the Year material and was such a shame the game was soured by its launch. If we were ever going to get an update of this magnitude, I would shit my pants with excitement. Sea of Thieves is such a special game and I'm looking forward to 2021 and I hope we can get some really meaty updates. So, that's my ranking for all 21 named updates. Here's one last look at the ranking to refresh your memory. Please put yours in the comment section because I'm interested to see how we all stack up. I want some fierce but civil debates in the comments. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like and most importantly subscribe. I have my review for Season 1 coming out next week, so look out for that one. So lastly, thanks for watching.